that because we are a French-speaking institution, I could also speak a little bit in French. So I would like to say some words about your topic. If there is no problem, I suspect you speak a little bit French, and I will articulate, I will use my French for foreigners, and I would like to say that, and I switch, it's always difficult, votre sujet est un sujet tout à fait fondamental, les contacts entre la Grèce et le Japon sont aujourd'hui quelque chose presque de banal. L'un de mes fils est un amoureux du Japon et donc un amoureux des mangas. Et je crois que finalement, sa représentation des divinités grecques passe pratiquement par les mangas. Les Chevaliers du Zodiaque, Odyssée 31, sont des mangas qui ont une grande notoriété en Occident et expriment le contact entre les deux sociétés. Mais ça remonte à très loin. Déjà au XVIIe siècle, un jésuite, toujours chercher les jésuites, au XVIIe siècle, un jésuite allemand recherchait déjà des liens entre la Grèce et le Japon. Et évidemment, surtout devant un public japonais, vous savez tous que la restauration des Meiji à partir de 1868 va accélérer cet intérêt pour la Grèce au Japon et que ça va se développer de plus en plus, y compris après la Deuxième Guerre mondiale et évidemment avec notamment Suzuki Tadashi, notamment ces troyennes, avec toujours, et je me limiterai à cela, l'extrême plasticité de la culture grecque. La culture grecque qui a toujours été utilisée dans différents sens pour se faire une place dans le monde international. Le Japon va utiliser la culture grecque pour atteindre un statut de puissance internationale. Ayant été précédé par cela, et je vous en conseille la lecture, par un article extraordinaire publié en 1890, qui est un article d'Edmond Potier. Alors Edmond Potier, ça a été un grand conservateur du musée du Louvre. Et en 1890, il publie dans la Gazette des Beaux-Arts un article qu'il intitule « La Grèce et le Japon ». Et l'idée, c'est de montrer qu'il y a dans l'art grec beaucoup de choses similaires à l'art japonais. On est à l'époque dans ce que l'on appelle le japonisme, c'est-à-dire l'influence du Japon sur tout l'art occidental, y compris même les impressionnistes. Et donc, c'est une très longue histoire de ces contacts entre la Grèce et le Japon parce que la culture grecque est paradigmatique. C'est-à-dire qu'on a toujours utilisé la culture grecque pour construire, penser différemment et construire des civilisations. Et évidemment, les pièces de théâtre, les tragédies grecques ont pensé toute la philosophie grecque. On pensait l'homme, on pensait son avenir, on pensait la manière dont il vivait, mais surtout, ces tragédies grecques, il ne faut jamais oublier qu'elles sont avant tout politiques. Elles sont politiques dans le sens hypolis, qui est apolitica, dans le sens de la cité grecque, mais elles sont aussi politiques dans le sens de l'engagement. Au moment où la démocratie se construit, la tragédie s'écrit. Les deux mécanismes sont exactement contemporains. Les premières tragédies datent exactement du moment où la démocratie se met en place à Athènes. Et immédiatement, la question chez Échille, par exemple, est cette question fondamentale qui est de savoir si vraiment la majorité a raison. Et vous avez toute une série de tragédies qui tournent autour de cette thématique. Est-ce que le fait d'être majoritaire indique que l'on a raison? Je pense que c'est encore aujourd'hui un thème essentiel de la démocratie, parce qu'en fait, c'est une définition presque grecque, si vous voulez, des risques du populisme. Est-ce que le fait d'être majoritaire est nécessairement la garantie d'une bonne démocratie? Et je ne ferai pas ici de politique, mais chaque jour nous ouvrons les journaux et il est évident que certains hommes politiques sont arrivés au pouvoir par le vote, mais ne défendent pas nécessairement, vous le savez, la démocratie. Donc, je pense que vous touchez ici un thème tout à fait essentiel, qui est bien sûr celui des relations entre le Japon et la Grèce, mais aussi au-delà, l'importance de l'expression culturelle de la politique. Et aujourd'hui, dans tous les pays, y compris en Belgique, on voit des attaques contre la culture, on voit des réductions des budgets culturels, on voit des attaques contre les sciences aussi, et vous le savez, aux États-Unis, il y a pour l'instant une vague anti-science au plus haut niveau de l'État. C'est vous dire que les académies qui soutiennent les sciences et les arts sont concernées par tout ce qui se passe. Et de vous accueillir aujourd'hui dans une thématique qui nous renvoie au rôle politique de la culture à travers notamment la tragédie grecque, est non seulement un grand plaisir, un honneur, mais aussi un devoir. Et je vous remercie d'avoir choisi, je vous remercie d'avoir initié ce mouvement. Et Excellencies, I hope that you will have an excellent evening, thanks to your staffs, but also a little bit thanks to the Royal Academy of Legends. So thank you very much, and I wish you an excellent evening.
Shall we go together? My colleague, yes. It's the first symbol of our cooperation, the fact Thank you very much, Professor. Nous vous remercions beaucoup, vous personnellement, mais aussi l'Académie royale de la Belgique. Nous sommes vraiment honorés du fait qu'on peut célébrer cet événement aujourd'hui dans cette salle, dans ce bâtiment splendide. Merci bien, vous avez tout fait pour que cette célébration ait lieu ici aujourd'hui. Thank you very much, my dear colleague, Ambassador of Japan. Our two countries have a long tradition of cooperation in very special domains, Mr. Papadopoulos. We have a cooperation as regards our polytechnic schools, because unfortunately we are two countries very frequently hit by earthquakes, and we have a close cooperation with regard to the construction of anti-earthquake buildings. We also had a very close cooperation with regard to the Olympic Games that you excellently organized in your country in a very challenging environment of the pandemic situation, and we all congratulate you for that. When Mr. Papadopoulos in October came to the embassy, Professor, proposing to the Greek embassy to have this event with these excellent speakers that we have the honor to have with us today, I was a bit skeptical because I thought, Ambassador, that it would be a great challenge for the Greek embassy to have this quality of organization that characterizes your country. And we are honored that we did our best to cooperate closely, thanks to also to Mr. Velisaroulis and to his colleague from the Japanese embassy that worked very closely together for this celebration. It's what Professor Vivier said about the culture, about the need of the contemporary societies to preserve the culture. This is the essence of today's celebration. We always think that perhaps ancient civilizations, the ancient Greek civilization, the ancient civilization of your country, they are not worth it today to have our attention. We are today the society of artificial intelligence, of the X space, of everything. But I think that there is something lacking for this, for young generation. And what is lacking is the tradition, is the good paradigm that you mentioned, Professor, the paradigm of ancient civilizations that in fact made it through the centuries because they had these paradigms. I will give the floor now to you, Ambassador, and I reiterate my great gratefulness to you and your team.
Thank you, Ambassador. Good evening, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not as good as Ambassador Gramata at speaking, so please allow me to look at my paper a little. It's a great honor and pleasure for me to speak at this prestigious Paredes Academy. This venue has long been a place for academic and cultural exchange, and I'm so grateful for Dr. Didier Vivier, Secretary Perpetual of the Royal Academy. Thank you very much for providing us with this wonderful venue. And also, of course, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the Embassy of Greece for its tremendous support. My special thanks, of course, go to Ambassador Sofia Gramata, who kindly asked me to co-host this event. I would also like to thank distinguished experts who have accepted to contribute to this event. And of course, I would like to thank two famous theater artists of Greece and Japan, Mr. Theodoros Terzopoulos and Mr. Tadashi Suzuki, who are not here today, but who have brought us together. Mr. Suzuki, who is well known for his Suzuki training method for actors, is really an interesting person. He started his career in the so-called Angura, in Japanese Angura, but it's underground theater movement in the early 1960s in Tokyo, and established his theater group, Waseda Little Theater. He made a success there, but after 10 years, in 1976, he moved to a remote mountain village called Toga. And later, he changed the name of his company to Suzuki Company of Toga, Scott. Why did he move from Tokyo to such a remote, small village? In his interview, he said, I quote, "I thought that Japanese people were deceived by the idea that they could improve their life by capitalism and globalization, by applying a single uniform standard. I thought it was wrong. In order to criticize the center, I moved to a place where the negative influence of the period was the smallest." End of quote. He was very critical of the Japanese society at that time, which was single-mindedly pursuing economic growth by abandoning a diversity of ideas and values. Therefore, by escaping Tokyo and moving to a remote village of Toga, he tried to establish direct exchanges with the world and overcome cultural and national barriers in the interest of creating work that is truly universal. Today, despite its small population size of fewer than 500, Toga has 6 theaters, rehearsal rooms, offices, lodgings, restaurants, etc., and attracts many actors and theater lovers from all over the world, with a total number of visitors being 200,000 per year. As a theater artist, Mr. Suzuki was always interested in individual human beings and the power of human bodies. He's an avant-garde artist of the post-war Japan, but his Suzuki training method has also its roots in the tradition of Japanese theater arts like No and Kabuki. He also got his inspirations from the great Greek theater tradition. Mr. Suzuki says that the reason why his works have been able to establish its international fame was thanks to the Greek tragedies. His famous work, The Trojan Women, was performed in Athens, Greece in June 1985 by director Terzopoulos. Mr. Suzuki's exchange and friendship with Mr. Terzopoulos represents a symbolic artistic dialogue between Greece and Japan, between the West and the East. Through this exchange, we are given an important opportunity to reflect on the value of humanity through the lens of art. And art had the power to make us think deeply, not only about expression, but also about how we live and coexist with others. In light of the great challenges that we are facing today, it is more important than ever to strive for cooperation rather than division and confrontation. The artistic exchange between Tadashi Suzuki and Theodoros Terzopoulos offers a valuable insight into how we might approach the complexities of our contemporary world. Art had the power to breach borders and unite cultures, and we must recognize its capacity to connect people across the globe. I hope that this wonderful opportunity serves as a moment for all of us to reflect on the power and significance of art. Thank you very much for your attention, and please enjoy this evening. Thank you very much indeed.
What we are doing every year in Lefkas. Because we have also everybody knows that we have Lefkadios Kern, half Greek, half Irish poet, who was for more than 40 years in Japan, and he's the national poet of Japan, professor. So, now the cooperation. Mr. Theodoros would like to say just a few words to us.
All this started the morning of August last year when I had a coffee meeting with my daughter. And she gave me a very good lesson that first of all I should expand my horizon beyond my legal and political theory, and of course evolve into a kind of a genuine artist, as I believe I should have been in my life, but I did not have the opportunity out of my, let's say, education. So I'm really honored. I'm really glad that we managed to have both ambassadors in this place with you, Professor Vivier. And it was really an opportunity for us to join forces and to see that the bottom-up approach, we really appreciate this opportunity. It is a bottom-up approach starting from a simple citizen and really reaching the level of a diplomatic cooperation at the highest level. I want to extend my thanks to all the staff of both embassies. I really appreciate the cooperation with Mr. Velisaroulis, but of course also with your staff, Mrs. Nakao and Mrs. Fuji. And I'm remain thankful forever to all invited persons that accepted to come from Greece, from Brussels, and Ghent, Professor Dekreus. So I wish everybody an interesting event. You will see how culture unites us, and our historic nations will remain closely together because we believe in the same values, in peace, in good cooperation, and we are against the war. So thanks a lot, Mrs. Ramada and Mr. Nkami, for this wonderful honor. Thank you.
περιχαρακωμένους στην ασφικτική ιδιότευσή τους, σε έναν κόσμο με ρομποτοποιημένες υπάρξεις, μέσα σε ένα ολοκληρωτικό σύστημα ελέγχου και καταστολής σε όλο το φάσμα της ζωής. Ανησυχεί το θέατρο για την οικολογική καταστροφή, την αύξηση της θερμοκρασίας της γης, τις τεράστιες απώλειες της βιοποικιλότητας, τη μόλυνση των ωκεανών, το λιώσιμο των πάγων, την αύξηση των δασικών πυρκαγιών και τα ακραία καιρικά φαινόμενα. Μπορεί το θέατρο να γίνει ένα ενεργό κομμάτι του οικοσυστήματος. Το θέατρο παρακολουθεί τα φαινόμενα των ανθρώπινων επιπτώσεων στον πλανήτη εδώ και πολλά χρόνια, αλλά δυσκολεύεται να συνδιαλλαγεί με αυτό το πρόβλημα. Αγωνιά το θέατρο για την ανθρώπινη κατάσταση, όπως αυτή διαμορφώνεται τον 21ο αιώνα, όπου ο πολίτης άγεται και αφαίρεται από πολιτικά και οικονομικά συμφέροντα, από δίκτυα ενημέρωσης και εταιρείες διαμόρφωσης κοινής γνώμης, όπου τα μέσα κοινωνικής δικτύωσης, όσο και αν διευκολύνουν, αποτελούν το μεγάλο άλοθη της επικοινωνίας, γιατί προσφέρουν την απαραίτητη απόσταση ασφαλείας από τον άλλον, ένα διάχυτο αίσθημα φόβου απέναντι στον άλλον, το διαφορετικό, το ξένο, κυριαρχεί στη σκέψη και τις πράξεις μας. Μπορεί το θέατρο να λειτουργήσει ως ένα εργαστήρι συνύπαρξης των διαφορετικότητων, χωρίς να λάβει υπόψη το τραύμα που αιμορραγεί. Το τραύμα αιμορραγεί και μας καλεί να ανακατασκευάσουμε τον μύθο. Και όπως λέει ο Χάινερ Μίλερ, ο μύθος είναι ένα σώρευμα, μια μηχανή στην οποία μπορούν να προστατώνται συνεχώς καινούργιες και άλλες μηχανές. Μεταφέρει την ενέργεια ώστε η αυξανόμενη ταχύτητα να ανατινάξει τον κύκλο του πολιτισμού και θα πρόσθετα τον κύκλο της βαρβαρότητας. Μπορεί ο προβολέας του θεάτρου να φωτίσει το κοινωνικό τραύμα και να πάψει να φωτίζει παραπλανητικά τον εαυτό του. Ερωτήματα που δεν επιδέχονται οριστικές απαντήσεις, επειδή το θέατρο υπάρχει και μακροημερεύει χάρη στα αναπάντητα ερωτήματα. Ερωτήματα που πυροδότησε ο Διόνυσος, περνώντας από το γενέθλιο τόπο του τη θυμέλη του αρχαίου θεάτρου και συνεχίζοντας σιωπηλός το προσφυγικό ταξίδι του σε τοπία πολέμου σήμερα, την Παγκόσμια ημέρα του θεάτρου. Ας κοιτάξουμε στα μάτια τον Διόνυσο, τον εκστατικό θεό του θεάτρου και του μύθου, που ενώνει το παρελθόν, το παρόν και το μέλλον, τέκνο δύο γεννήσεων, του Δία και της Σεμέλης, εκφραστής ρευστών ταυτοτήτων, γυναίκα και άντρας, οργισμένος και πράος, θεός και ζώο, στο μετέχνιο, μεταξύ τρέλας και λογικής τάξεως και χάους, ακροβάτης στο όριο της ζωής και του θανάτου. Ο Διόνυσος θέτει το θεμελιώδες οντολογικό ερώτημα περί τίνος πρόκειται. Ερώτημα που ενεργοποιεί τον δημιουργό προς την κατεύθυνση μιας ολοένα βαθύτερης έρευνας της ρίζας του μη και των πολλαπλών διαστάσεων του ανθρώπινου ενίγματος. Χρειαζόμαστε νέους τρόπους αφήγησης που θα αποσκοπούν στην καλλιέργεια της μνήμης και στη διαμόρφωση μιας νέας ηθικής και πολιτικής ευθύνης, με στόχο την έξοδο από την πολύμορφη δικτατορία του σημερινού μεσαίωνα. Φίλες και φίλοι, γεια σας. Είμαι συγκινημένος για την τιμή που κάνετε στο φίλο μου Tadashi Suzuki και σε μένα με αφορμή το αφιέρωμα. Θα μπορούσα να πω ότι η φιλία μου με τον Tadashi Suzuki είναι καρμική. Από την πρώτη στιγμή που συναντηθήκαμε στους Δελφούς το 1985, από τις πρώτες ενθουσιώδεις κουβέντες πάνω στην αρχαία ελληνική τραγωδία, καταλάβαμε και οι δύο ότι μπορεί να δημιουργεί μια δυνατή φιλία και να αντλήσει ένας διάλογος πάνω στις παραδόσεις των δύο χωρών. Και πραγματικά πάτησαμε μαζί συνοδοιπόροι στο μεγάλο σχέδιο της ίδρυσης της Θεατρικής Ολυμπιάδας και στην ανάπτυξη των ελληνο-ιαπωνικών καλλιτεχνικών ανταλλαγών. Θα ήθελα να ευχαριστήσω την Ελληνίδα πρέσβυρα στις Βρυξέλλες, κυρία Γραμματά, τον Ιάπωνα πρέσβη, κύριο Μικάμι, τον κύριο Αναστάσιο Παπαδόπουλο και την κυρία Φάνη Παπαδοπούλου για την εξαιρετική πρωτοβουλία και για τον μόθο τους. Τους αγαπημένους ομιλητές Φρένη Δεκραίους, φίλων εδώ και 40 χρόνια, Πινελόπη Χατζηδημητρίου, Αναστάσιο Ιλό, Κατερίνα Μανδρώνη. Επίσης τον Σπύρο Τσιφτσί, την Ελληνική Χοροδία Βρυξελών και τον Φιλοβλάχο. Επίσης όλους και όλες όσους εργάστηκαν για αυτό το αφιέρωμα. Τέλος, είμαι πολύ συγκινημένος που η εκδήλωση αφιερώνεται στη μνήμη του φίλου μου Γιάννη Οικονομίδη. Σας εύχομαι καλή επιτυχία. Ευχαριστώ θερμά. Γεια σας.
Dear Lord, thank you from my heart for the hospitality, the invitation, the challenge, this opportunity to combine through my words and my analysis an approach to two precious civilizations that have a long past, a rich present, and a very promising and challenging future ahead, always through theater. Thank you for everything. So, Greek tragedy entered Japan at the end of the 19th century, together with Shakespeare, Ibsen, and Chekhov. Interestingly, Japan's first modern theater, the Jukiji Little Theater, founded and built in 1924, took as its logo a bunch of grapes, as a reference to Dionysus, god of wine and theatre in Asiat Athens, and thus embraced Dionysus as the symbol of affiliation with the theatre of the West, rather than that of indigenous Japanese drama. Still, despite its Dionysian logo, no Greek tragedy was staged at that point. We are at the beginning of the 20th century still. Dionysus was also honored in the name of the so-called Grape Society, Buto no Kai, a theater company founded in 1947 by the Shingeki actress Yamamoto Yasuo. Despite such tributes to Dionysus and the ancient Greek origins of Western theater, this was the only Greek presence for much of the early modern Japanese theater history because of Shingeki's commitment to modernity and naturalism. The notable exception in this first phase of the reception of ancient Greek tragedy, in Japan always, is Yukio Mishima, the writer, the famous Japanese writer, who wrote 3 adaptations of Greek tragedy, Phaedra in 1955, and 2 Shingeki adaptations, the so-called Tropical Tree, based on the Oresteia in 1959, and an adaptation of Euripides called Iraklis in 1967. Mishima was the first, actually, to demonstrate that Greek tragedy could be adapted for the Japanese context and could be accepted by Japanese audiences, thus setting a model for the playwrights and directors who emerged during the second phase of the reception in the 1960s. And I forgot all about the PowerPoint. So, I'll skip that, and now we're here. Yes, the second phase emerged in the youth anti-war, anti-Western counterculture of the 60s, featuring the Japanese directors Tadashi Suzuki, whom we honor today, Shuzi Terayama, and Makoto Sato. They sought to find the Japanese voice in a Greek text, linking a critique of Japanese society with rejection of Shingeki's slavish devotion to realism. Such artists experimented with fusions with traditional Japanese theater like Noh and Kabuki, source material from myth and legend, and a desire to transform the relationship between audience and performer. The result was adaptations of Greek tragedy that both challenged traditional Western dramaturgy and critique Japanese culture and society. The latest phase of the reception of Greek tragedy in Japan emerges in the late 70s and early 80s. Now, Tadashi Suzuki again, an intercultural by now artist, Yukio Ninagawa and Kawamura Takeshi employ Greek tragedy to engage international audiences, developing new dramaturgies in adaptation instead of faithful translation, while also finding social relevance again in the plays presented. Suzuki is the dominant cultural presence in the field of Japanese performance of Greek tragedy, presenting multiple productions of the Trojan Women, the Bacchae, Oedipus the King, and his own adaptation of all 6 plays about the house of Atreus entitled Clytemnestra. It is during this third international and intercultural phase of the Japanese reception of Greek tragedy in the 80s that the collaboration of Suzuki and Theodoros Terzopoulos starts taking shape to finally become a landmark in the history of the meeting of the theaters of the East and the West. Now, Dionysus is no more a mere logo name, but a force born out of the 1960s revolutions that unites the 2 directors in the 1980s internationalism and interculturalism. The 2 men share a common interest in Greek tragedy, the belief in theater's power to reform mental and social ecologies, to resist globalization and the cultural homogeneity it brings to the modern world. They both depart from realistic mimesis, and in their own unique styles, they work with the physical body as a means of resistance against hegemonic discourses and the invasion of technology. What is more, they are both intrigued by the figure of Dionysus and Euripides' tragedy, The Bacchae. Both Suzuki and Terzopoulos are Dionysian as they invest on the performance animal energy, as Suzuki calls it, and energy body, as Terzopoulos calls it, to work with a do-or-die battle mentality in performing and thus shape the renowned acting methods. In ancient Greek tragedy and theater architecture, Suzuki finds the abundant animal energy that his project requires. For Terzopoulos, Dionysus, I quote, the god of fertility, calls on the actor to search for the archetypal body which is hidden in the depths of its structure, suppressed and repressed by the mind. Intrigued by Dionysus, both directors see the theater as the key site to foreground a new mental and social ecology because theater permits the imaginative reconfiguration of bodily forms, comportments, behaviors, and allows the body to act in ways that are profoundly antisocial. In Bacchae, for example, in 1986, Terzopoulos voiced the otherness within Greek historicity, digging out the most violated bodies of the Greek history. As Terzopoulos describes it, Dionysian energy is destructive, but this is a sort of positive, creative distraction because it combats the present mental ecology which is in crisis, fighting for a better future. As for Suzuki and his lifelong relation with Dionysus and the Bacchae, it seems that the particular tragedy fuels the double-edged character of his theater, which, in terms of aesthetic form and stage representation, cultivates an encounter, an interweaving, even a fusion of different cultures. For example, modern and traditional, Japanese and Greek, Eastern and Western, religious and political, male and female. Whereas, in terms of content, it exposes their clash. On top of the above, Suzuki and Terzopoulos share a common belief in the need for international artistic collaborations that cross borders, beliefs, cultures, styles. As artistic director of the ancient Greek meetings at the European Cultural Center of Delphi in the 80s, Terzopoulos introduced Suzuki, as it has already been said, among other major foreign directors and theoreticians, to the Greeks, transforming Delphi into an alternative space of research on the tragic genre, a space where directing and dramaturgical voices contradict the more conventional ones that are heard mainly in the theater of Theodoros. More specifically, Terzopoulos invited Suzuki to Delphi to present a number of his productions of Greek tragedy, starting, as it has already been said, with the Trojan Women in 1985. In 1986, the villages of Delphi, where the European Cultural Center of Delphi is, and Toga, where Suzuki sets his theater center, were twinned, bringing cultural benefits to both communities. Clytemnestra was staged there on the same year. Later, Suzuki's Electra, 1995, and Oedipus the King in 2000 were also presented. Except for Delphi, Suzuki's tragedies also reached the Greek audiences in Athens. In 1995, Suzuki's Dionysus was presented in the Festival of Athens. In 2009, Electra was staged at Attis Theatre, where the theatre house of Terzopoulos is. Similarly, many performances directed by Terzopoulos were presented in Toga, Tokyo, and Shizuoka, from the Bacchae in 1986 and Persians in 1992 till the Trojan Women in 2019. This 40-year artistic friendship and collaboration has borne many more fruits of international scope. In 1994, the broad-minded Tadashi Suzuki embraced Terzopoulos' vision for the International Theatre Olympics, and since the first ones in 1995, held in Delphi and dedicated to tragedy, and the second ones in 1999 held in Shizuoka, till the latest ones, both directors actively support and engage in the materialization of this vision. As Suzuki stresses in a note dedicated to Terzopoulos, which he wrote in April 1994, that is 2 months before the first official meeting of the International Committee of Theatre Olympics held in Athens, I quote, "We are at the end of the 20th century. The prospects of humanity don't seem so bright. 2000 years ago, Greek theatre existed as a spiritual manifestation serving humanity. Now," Suzuki continues, "we have to reaffirm and reconquer the power of the theatre and construct with this medium a bridge to the 21st century. In this light, Terzopoulos has reunited the greatest stage directors of the world." I would say that 30 years later, today, such aspirations continue to sound valid and be crucial. Thank you very much.
This is the sign that I have to start. Very happy to see you, ambassadors, Monsieur le Président de l'Institut, chers collègues, Kyrie Papadopoulos. So good that we see that you all collaborate with your staff, with your teams, in order to make it possible what happens today. In a world that threatens to fall apart, it's good that some people work together. Art can maybe not save the world, but we cannot prevent art to shout so loud as possible. That's why we are here today, connected with each other. My talk will be about Theodoros Terzopoulos. After 40 years of artistic directorship of Greece's most famous theatre company, after 50 of his own productions with the Athens Theatre, after 2,300 performances at home and abroad, after 40 academic books on his artistic career published in 20 languages, and more than 50 academic symposiums on his acting method, after hundreds of international invitations from Bogota to Taipei, from Beijing to Philadelphia, after the development of a digitized studio center located right opposite of the Athens Theatre, after having created productions that continue to play worldwide, sometimes 7 years in a row, after more than 400 physical workshops on the method he designed, after the translation of his methodological manifesto, The Return of Dionysus, into 12 languages, and after the construction of 2 theatre buildings in Athens, Theodoros Terzopoulos and his theatre group Athens have proven to possess a unique intellectual capital. Intellectual capital oh, I need the right. Thank you. Thank you. Intellectual capital, first. Central to this intellectual capital of Theodoros is a theatrical praxis that is highly socio-political charged and calls us all to participate in an attitude of resistance and resilience. It focuses on society in the broadest possible sense and calls on everyone to dare to think independently and to exercise the necessary freedom in a centuries-long struggle against forms of political oppression that seek to silence the human being. To this end, Theodoros reassessed the body as the main energetic force of full humanity, and asked everyone never to forget that we must dare to breathe, that we must dare to love the body, my body, your body, all of our bodies together. The body is a cosmic breathing machine that allows the smallest somatic elements to connect with the largest cosmic dimensions. Micro meets macro. Creation is followed by destruction and apocalypse. The furthest past speaks through the present. You see that fantastic body of this Antigone, like Antigone. Girl power, through the body, real presence. She dares to be fully human, fully feminine. This philosophy of life states that we must always remember that we are stardust, some amino acids that have proved viable on this blue planet that we are sadly destroying at enormous speed in what is called the Anthropocene age. This unnamed rich body constitutes for Theodoros the greatest possible capital of life, not as an ideological white body, but as a carrier of the Homo universalis, a late and maybe the last phase of the Homo sapiens. Second, Theodoros as carrier of cultural capital. This body constitutes the most important cultural capital. For half a century, Theodoros has been putting this thesis into practice in a completely innovative way, in close connection with, also in opposition with Greek cultural tradition. Since 1985, founding date of his own Athens-based theatre group Attis, he situated this body both in the fields of philosophy and sociology, both in those of evolutionary medicine and psychoenergetics. Performances at the world's most sacred sites evoked with every performance a connection to a rich cultural history that crossed centuries and emphasized the ritual nature of theater performance. In sacred places where entire cultures shaped their deepest existential problems and worked out processes of mental and spiritual meaning, Attis theater performed an innovative theater that probed the deepest layers of what humanity can ever mean. Most recently, this amazing tour he did with Ischylos Oresteia passed exclusively through culturally sensitive places with a high spiritual value, such as the ancient theatres of Epidaurus, Dodona, Philippi, and Curion. Also in the iconic Odeon of Herodes Atticus in Athens, and in the historic theatre, Teatro Olimpico in Vicenza, built by the Renaissance architect Andrea Palladio. But let us not forget that he also wants to play in amazing spaces like the one he chose here in Germany, when he was staging his Prometheus cycles, not only in Istanbul, Athens, but also here in Essen, in Germany, in the Stiftung, Salzburg, one of the only steel factories that was not bombed during the Second World War by the Allied Western forces, because they wanted to keep that steel production for themselves later on. Maybe. That's the story. 3. Capital, a human capital. by allowing Dionysus, his spiritual patron and source of eternal inspiration, to travel worldwide in productions and workshops. Theodoros also created a great human capital. Thousands of spectators were confronted with the energetic pulse and pathos of Dionysus. Thousands also followed the practical training sessions in a method that preached the return of Dionysus, and which he and Terzopoulos presented with didactic precision rarely seen. Just a few years ago, both of them were here in Belgium, and they were invited by Jan Faber's theatre company in Antwerp, to explain and to deepen the physicality of Jan Faber's own embodied theatre. Everywhere Theodoros went, a special human capital was created by bringing together creative people who wanted to join him in the challenge of exploring the hybrid nature of man. From the tragedy of the Greek tragedians to the minimalism of Beckett, from the natural philosophy of Heraclitus to the dissidence of Heiner Müller, his theatre focused on all possible wounds that end up in human suffering and human unrest, yet without ever wanting to dogmatize or idealize himself. It's amazing when you think of everything what he has been doing, what one person can do, what one person can create through his human capital, through his human energy, how many thousands of students and followers all over the world he has created in the last 30 and 40 years. As an example. 4. Relational capital. Theodoros is also at the basis of a strong relational capital. Through decades of efforts, he created networks that established long-term collaborations, investing in training and development of thousands of interested people. He was often honored for this at Delphi, the place where he founded his own theatre in 85. Epicenter also of Greek theatre, where many symposia and workshops went on that tested his method mentally and physically. His spiritual mentorship led to the creation of numerous international organizations and earned him academic recognition. Just think of all the many honorary doctorates he received all over the world. The fact that his method travels the globe is evident from courses taught at the Beijing Central Theatre Academy, the St. Petersburg Theatre Academy, the Silvio D'Amico National Theatre in Rome, the Taiwan Theatre Academy, or the Grotowski Institute in Poland, and I can go on for some minutes. You see how many important artists he was able to collect around him. And Müller here, Cornelis just saw. So important that people are able to create networks of important artists. You're not alone in your life when you're an artist. You're diffusing your energy. You're diffusing and capturing souls. Man is not alone in the world. And to end, fifthly, is existential capital. For me, maybe the most important thing. Without explicitly without explicitly holding religion or politics responsible for everything that goes wrong in the world, his theatre probes the place that man can occupy in all his ideological weakness and strength. His theatre oscillates between past, present, and future, in a chronological landscape somewhere in the middle of expanding dimensions of time and space, somewhere between the archaic and the modern, somewhere between the tragic and the post-tragic. As Heiner Müller said, quote, "In Terzopoulos theater is not a fairy tale. It is condensed experience. The process of rehearsal is not a performance of dramatic concept. It is an adventure on a journey to the landscape of memory." Unquote. This catabasis to the past goes particularly deep, digging up physical and mental traces left by very distant ancestors, right down to the reptile that modeled our most primary brain and which we still experience daily in the dorsal and ventral action of the nervus vagus. We still freeze, we still flee, we still fight. They're beautiful, these tongues, these biting tongues of two queens. They love each other, they hate each other, they want to bite and kill each other. Huh? This is Dionysus, of course, but it is the Dionysus of the reptilian brain. And goes back thousands and thousands of years, earlier than 5th century Dionysus. So his existential capital is something that unites us. Modernism with the very archaic, with evolutionary medicine, goes very deep. By staging the return of Dionysus, he confronted us with questions that concern both our existential and evolutionary self. Difficult but rewarding questions that wake us up from the paralyzing banality of a patriarchal, colonial, and religious power mindset. I guess that a person who needs and feels fulfilled by meeting another person is maybe the most important thing in our lives. Theodoros was for me the last 30 and even 40 years a kind of spiritual father who guided my thoughts and who guided my emotions. For me, he's not really somebody who just makes theater. He's more than that. He's a wise man. He's a philosopher. His influence goes very deep. And that's why it's not only for me, but it's for the whole relationship between me as a Belgian guy and some countries as far as Greece and now Japan. We are together in an adventure, a shared adventure of spirituality and brotherhood. Thank you, Theodoros, Aristopoli, and Adam.
Yes, yes.
まあどこの国もそうだし、どんな人間もそうだけど、自分が完全だと思ってはいけないわけね。例えば病気になれば車椅子に乗るんだよ。大体人間最後になると人の世話になるんだよ。それはつまり人間っていうものは完全に向かって生きてるんだよ。そういう体も精神状態もそうだろう。認知症っていうのはそうじゃないの、ね、だからこそ社会保障が必要だし、いろんな政治的な配慮が必要なんだよ。それを忘れてるんだよ、あんたたちは。大体30代、40代ぐらいだと、あたかもなんか自分が完全だと思ってるかもしれないけれども、完全に向かって生きてるんだろう。違うから人間っていうのは。そうすると、我々は一瞬そういうものを、忘れてるかもしれないけど、どっか精神的にもね、肉体的にも不完全なんだよっていうことを自覚するっていうことが、お互いが仲良くできるもとだって言ってるわけ。 私がこのトラブルに参りましたのは1976年です。44年経ちました。44年というと大変長い。どうも私も80になりました。あと何年続くか分かりませんけれども、もうこれはここまで来ましたらですね、もう脱北じゃなくて、ここを去るかっていうのはやりませんし、こうなった以上、もう最後にやり尽くすことまでどんどんやりますので。
Good evening. I am grateful for being here today with all of you. And I'm also very happy to share this and to honor my two teachers that I was very lucky that I have met them. And as Freddy said, they are not just great teachers, they are wise men. Thank you for saying that, Freddy. So, I would like to begin with a few brief biographical notes about Tadashi Suzuki, because I believe that his life and beginnings are directly connected to his philosophy. He is one of those people whose beliefs are not only reflected in their work, but are thoroughly lived. In 1958, he enters Waseda University and joins Waseda Jiyu Utai, literally Free States Drama Society. Tadashi Suzuki began his involvement in theater during his university years. At the time, the Shingeiki, literally New Drama movement, was flourishing. Theatrical productions, both professional and student-led, staged European plays with a strongly leftist orientation and followed the Stanislavski method. That is, actors strove to render the characters they portrayed with the greatest possible realistic accuracy. From the very beginning, Suzuki felt that something in this system didn't quite work. He saw that modern post-war Japanese theater could not simply be an imitation of Western theater. It could not treat as sacred and employ in their original form texts that had been written in different national and political contexts, targeting audiences whose sensitivities and cultural experiences were different from those of Japanese spectators. But the very next year, he decided to start directing. In 1959, he directs his first play. In 1960, he becomes president of Waseda Free States, and 1 year later, he forms the Waseda Free States Company, named after the Drama Society. Against this politicized but culturally detached form of theater that had dominated until then, he began to search for and develop his own kind of theater, one centered around the human being. Small parenthesis. Later, in 1981 interview, Suzuki will say, "The word is an act of the body. In Japan, the director and the writer serve the actor. The director is responsible for bringing out the hidden power that resides below the surface in an actor, something that the actor himself may not even be aware of. In the kabuki of Namboku's time, the actors were in a very real sense shamans. In order to restore this kind of mystical, shamanistic sense to the acting process, I have devised numerous physical exercises which help to restore magical power to the actor." So, in this rethinking of the Japanese theater, a crucial role was played by his university classmate Minoru Betsuyaku, later recognized as Japan's first absurdist writer, and one of his first actresses, Kayoko Shiraishi. It is said that Suzuki was fortunate enough to find in Shiraishi an actress who could perfectly embody his theories about the depths of the Japanese psyche and physique, which had been left sadly unexplored by the Shingeki movement. It's important to note here that Suzuki, alongside Japanese original plays and adaptations, also staged European playwrights, such as Chekhov, Miller, Sartre, and Williams, and later, after founding the Waseda Shogekijo, literally the Waseda Little Theatre, in 1966, also Gorky, Beckett, Shakespeare, and eventually in 1974, Ancient Greek Tragedy. However, he always intervened in the original texts, creating his own dramaturgy to better highlight the themes that concerned him. Going a bit back again. In 1966, the Waseda Free Stage Group was renamed to Waseda Shogekijo, literally Little Theatre, and found a home on the second floor of the Moncherie Café right next to the university. In 1970, the performance of the dramatic Passions 2 experienced unexpected success, and by 1972, Suzuki, in addition to his work at the studio of the Little Theatre, began to travel to major European festivals. He developed his own system of physical training for actors, something that Grotowski himself came to Tokyo to observe. He took over the artistic direction of the Iwanami Hall and directed his landmark production of The Trojan Women and The Night and the Clock, a collage of scenes based on Macbeth, which earned him the Kinokuniya Award for Japanization of Shakespeare. Amidst this creative momentum and creating and growing national and international recognition, in 1976, Suzuki made perhaps the most pivotal, certainly the most unexpected decision of his career, to move his company from the center of Tokyo to the remote village of Toga. A few years later, in September 1984, he renamed his company to Scott, Suzuki Company of Toga. What is now known as the Toga Art Park has continued to expand ever since with new facilities, performance spaces, and accommodations for visitors to the Toga International Theatre Festival. This is Toga as it is now. And of course, none of this were there when he first moved, right? He did everything. Alongside with his friend Arata Isozaki, the famous architect. So these are original houses, Gasozukuri, am I saying it right? Farmhouses, traditional farmhouses that Gasozukuri means hands in the hand of a prayer. And they've been remodeled with Arata Isozaki, and I will show you some of the buildings. That's also why the architecture is like that, so the snow will fall down and not take down the house. I will now read an excerpt from chapter 4 of Suzuki's book Culture is the Body, titled The Lonely Village, where he talks about his decision to move to the small village in Toyama Prefecture. Being all too human, we often believe it possible to exercise our free will and choose as we please. The reality is that most of the time we cannot. We are forced instead to make decisions based on a set of specific, limited circumstances. For me, those circumstances were determined by the 1960s Tokyo environment, where I formed part of a generation dissatisfied with the direction in which the country was going as it experienced unprecedented economic growth on a global scale. A side effect of this boom was a bigger is better mentality in just about every field. This mindset had its effect on cultural policy as well. in the theatre. This resulted in the construction of unwieldy, large-scale theatre complexes across the country with no real plan as to how these facilities would be sustained and no artistic vision driving them. Searching for a way to realize my artistic vision, I rejected those trends, determined to find a way to produce my work without sacrificing my ideals, and thus founded the Waseda Sogekijo company. With this group, I was able to create a place where artists who shared the same critical, even defiant point of view on society could work independently of the dominant theatre company structures of the time without compromising their principles. By fostering an environment clearly. Small break. Are you ready? By fostering an environment clearly focused on artistic and philosophical goals, we were able to overcome all manner of obstacles and diversity, achieving more in the end than we ever predicted. As the rest of society, in fact the rest of the world, was following the credo of bigger is better, we sought to return the theatre to its origins. The Waseda Sogekijo space, in contrast to the centralized commercial theatre, provided me this marginal perspective which I used as a springboard to investigate the issues of our time with a small group of uncompromising artists, focused on the specific objective of restoring a dense, rich intensity to the theatrical act. We wanted nothing less than to cause a revolution to the hearts and minds of our audience. In this sense, the move to Toga from the Waseda Sogekijo space was only logical. In order to intensify our marginal perspective, we had to make it as dynamic as possible and see where that would lead us artistically. This is Chusan. Chusan is the nickname of Mr. Tadashi Suzuki. While rehearsing 2023, just before the rehearsal starts. In Toga, of course. This beautiful theatre is in Toga. It's a Greek amphitheatre designed by Tadashi Suzuki. From 1977 and for many years to come, Suzuki tours to many cities in Europe, USA, and Asia. It is Suzuki training to universities and theatre companies around the world, revives past performances as bilingual productions involving actors from abroad, is appointed artistic director of Mitsui Festival, acting company of Mito, Shizuoka Performing Arts Center, builds ACM, acting company of Mito, theater at Mito, designed by Tadashi Suzuki again, founds CITI, Saratoga International Theatre Institute in New York with Anne Bogart, forms Committee of International Theatre Olympics with Theodoros Terzopoulos, Yuri Lubimov, Heiner Müller, Bob Wilson and others, co-founds Beseto Theatre Festival, and more. Great. Here. The foundation that Suzuki used to create his own theatrical language and thus succeed where Shingeki failed was the spiritual and physical heritage of the Japanese people, the traditional theater forms of No and Kabuki. The way he incorporated this into his working method achieved something even greater than his original goal. His theater speaks not only to the modern Japanese, but to the modern human being, regardless of nationality, gender, political or religious beliefs. Culture is the body. This phrase and title of Suzuki's book is confirmed by his philosophy and above all by his practice. This, in fact, is where the greatest artistic contribution of Suzuki and of Terzopoulos, of course, lies, the creation of a training system for actors. Through physical exercises that confront the actor with balance, breath, and concentration, the goal is to activate their vital energy, their animal energy, and awaken the other body that lies dormant within our contemporary bodies. In Suzuki's words, my exercises are intended as a means to discover self-awareness of the interior body, and the actor's success in doing them confirms his ability to make that discovery. The actor learns to become conscious of the many layers of sensitivity within his own body. A Japanese actor has no special claim to success or to developing those skills in his own body any more than anyone else. The gesture of stamping on the ground, whether performed by Europeans or Japanese, gives the actor a sense of the strength inherent in his own body. It is a gesture that can lead to the creation of a fictional space, perhaps even a ritual space, in which the actor's body can achieve a transformation from the personal to the universal. One of the core principles of Suzuki's philosophy is go towards the difficulty. My first teacher in the Suzuki method Camaro still, when explaining the mental focus required during the training, told us, for every obstacle overcome, a new one must be discovered to replace it. It is this incessant search for obstacles and the willful engagement of the challenges they present that allow us to evolve as artists and as human beings. The entire body of Suzuki's work, including his productions, his actor training, and his theoretical writings, is not merely a response to the theatrical concerns, but an epistole for living in the 21st century. Behind his call to vigorously identify and overcome obstacles is an imperative to focus on the process, not product. A manifesto imploring us to change the paradigm of our lives, to live not in the solution but in the problem, not in the answer but in the question. And I would like to close with these words by Mr. Suzuki. The only result we can be sure of in life is death. All the rest is changeable and capable of surprising us. Yet, somehow materialism has brought about a kind of machine-like fatalism which dictates almost every aspect of contemporary daily life, so that we dwell with narrow, predictable parameters, with decreasing room to imagine a world divergent from the one advertised to us. The role of the artist in society must be, rather, to give people an opportunity to perceive the world anew, to stimulate their imagination so they may live in the question.
Kalispera, bonsoir, good evening. I would like to thank l'Académie Royale and the Professor Vivier, the Greek and the Japanese embassy for this excellent opportunity for a cultural meeting between Greece and Japan. The subject of my paper is a bit strange and surprising. Exploring the interplay of Spinoza's body-mind concept in the theater of Terzopoulos and Suzuki. Spinoza's seminal work, The Ethics, offers a profound exploration of the relationship between the body and the mind. He posits that the mind and body are not separate entities, but rather two distinct attributes of the same underlying substance, which he identifies as God or nature. Spinoza overtly claims that, by body, I mean a mode which expresses in a certain determinate manner the essence of God, and so far as he is considered as an extended thing. A bit further in his ethics, he underlines, the human mind is the very idea or knowledge of the human body. And he repeats, the mind does not know itself except insofar as it perceives the ideas of the modifications of the body. Therefore, no primacy or dominance of the mind, but a holistic view of the human being, which challenges the traditional Cartesian dualism that separates the mind and body as distinct and independent entities. Spinoza's conception of the body-mind relationship is rooted in the notion that the essence of a human being is not the mind, but rather the body. The body is not merely a passive vessel, but an active and expressive entity that is inextricably linked to the mind. Better say that the body maps the mind, generates mental images, in other words, the foundational component of our minds as the body. This perspective suggests that the mind is not a disembodied entity, but rather an emergent property of the body's interactions with the world. Spinoza's ideas have had a significant impact on various fields, including philosophy, psychology, and the arts. Rereading Spinoza's ethics, and in particular his thesis on the relationship between body and mind, may bring out another perspective regarding the work and method of two significant and influential directors, Theodoros Terzopoulos and Tadashi Suzuki. They both have been exploring the interplay of body-mind in the realm of theatre and in their respective approaches to performance. This is precisely the subject of my paper, to highlight this eclectic affinity between the 17th century Dutch philosopher's concept of body-mind relationship and the practice of two directors who carved a unique path in 20th century theatre, a legacy for the 21st century. I started with Terzopoulos. Theodoros Terzopoulos has developed a unique approach to performance that draws heavily on Spinoza's body-mind concept. Terzopoulos' theatre is characterized by a strong emphasis on the physicality of the actor, with a focus on the body as a vehicle for expression and the exploration of the inner life of the character. Terzopoulos' approach to actor training is influenced by the work of Konstantin Stanislavski and Antonin Artaud, as well as the ancient Greek tragedies. He encourages his actors to engage in rigorous physical and vocal exercises that aim to unlock the expressive potential of the body. Terzopoulos' approach to theatre is not merely a physical exercise, but a means of exploring the deeper layers of human experience and existence. Heiner Müller wisely summarizes Terzopoulos' endeavor as an, I quote, an adventurous journey through the landscapes of memory, a search for the lost keys to body and speech, to the world as a natural unity, unquote. Namely, in search of the primeval world, when human being was a whole with nature, when the human body was allowed to discover new dimensions of existence closer to God's, an existence which is now bounded by cultural constraints and the quasi-omnipresence of intellectual primacy. Terzopoulos' method is based on this physioanalysis, as he calls it, that helps the actor to access the hidden underlying memories and emotional experiences that are stored within the body, challenging the traditional separation of mind and body. He assumes that the real source of our energy and knowledge comes from the interior of the body, from memories which have been printed inside us from long ago. There exists an inner energy which carries images and impressed memories of other lives and of other eras. Namely, there exists all the knowledge of the world inside our very bodies, and there is no need for us to refer to 100 books in order to extract this. This is the reason for which in his productions Terzopoulos often uses masks and stylized movements to create a sense of abstraction and universality, inviting all audiences, regardless of race, origin, culture, religion, to engage with the work on a deeper, more primal level. Tadashi Suzuki has often explored the relationship between the body and the mind in his theater practice. Suzuki's approach to actor training is centered on the development of a strong, grounded physical presence, which he believes is essential for the actor to fully engage with the text and the audience. Anastasia has already explained that. Actor's body perceives and performs various nuances of feelings that all humans would share as a common property beyond all differences in race and culture. The whole body speaks, even when one keeps in silence. What the actor and the audience experience is a state of being on the stage. Similar to Terzopoulos, Suzuki's work may be considered as an implication of Spinoza's body-mind concept. He believes that the essence of human beings is not the mind, but the body, and that the body is the primary means of communication and expression and the theater. For Suzuki, a cultured society is one whose the perceptive and expressive abilities of the human body are used to the full. In other words, his theater is based on the animal energy of the human body, that is, on the skills and efforts of its own capacity. Suzuki method emphasizes the development of a strong, centered physical presence through a series of rigorous exercises that engage the entire body. These exercises, which often involve stomping, walking, and other forms of physical engagement with the floor, are designed to connect the actor's body to the ground and to cultivate a sense of inner power and focus. Suzuki's theater productions often feature stylized, highly physical performances that challenge the traditional boundaries of theater. Like Terzopoulos, Suzuki believes that the actor's body can be a locus of transformation and exploration, a means of accessing the deeper layers of human experience. The approaches of Terzopoulos and Suzuki to theater share a deep connection with Spinoza's body-mind concept, as they both prioritize the body as the primary means of expression and exploration in the theater. Both directors have developed unique and influential approaches to actor training and performance that challenge the traditional separation of mind and body and instead seek to explore the interconnectedness of the two. Through their use of stylized movements, masks, and other abstract theatrical elements, Terzopoulos and Suzuki invite their audiences to engage with the work on a deeper, more primal level, tapping into the hidden memories and emotional experiences that are stored within the body. When we observe the actors on the stage, it is the expression of their whole body that draws our attention, and when words get uttered, we do not simply listen to them, visualizing their dictionary meanings. On the contrary, we participate in the music of the words, leading us to the path of lost memories and a for long forgotten way of existing. In this way, the theater of Terzopoulos and Suzuki can be seen as a powerful exploration of Spinoza's body-mind concept, offering a unique and compelling perspective on the human experience. Furthermore, the solution of the body-mind problem suggested by the theater of Terzopoulos and Suzuki offers a deep insight into our understanding of who we are, of our human identity, jeopardized by all kinds of non-animal energy utilized in contemporary societies of the Western world. Thank you very much.
Φόρησα από το σπίτι μου προς το ρέμα. Όταν πάτησα στο νερό, άκουσα κάποιες φωνές γύρω μου, σαν μια δίνη, ένα σπιράλ από φωνές με τη λέξη ποιος. Εν χορό. Σηκώνω το κεφάλι μου και είδα ένα κυκλικό θόλο με πολλά διαζώματα, 6 ή 10 και κάποιες μορφές. Το όνειρο που έβγαινε από το υποσυνείδητο εννοείται. Ήταν μια εικόνα που την απελευθέρωσε το υποσυνείδητο. Εγώ είχα τρομάξει. Έτρεξα και έφτασα εδώ στο δέντρο που συνάντησα μια άλλη εικόνα. Σταμάτησα σχεδόν πανικόβλητος, γιατί είδα μπροστά μου 3 φιγούρες χαρακτηριστικές στον Αιγυπτιακό πολιτισμό. 2 στρατιώτες με την στολή της αρχαίας Αιγύπτου και κρατούσαν σφιχτά τη μεσαία, την κεντρική φιγούρα. Όπου με κοίταξε στα μάτια, όπου ήταν πουλί και σιγά σιγά έγινε άνθρωπος και σιγά σιγά ξανά έγινε πουλί και μάρτυσε. Έτρεξα πάλι, ακριβώς από αυτήν εδώ την ανηφόρα και πέρασα από την άλλη πλευρά, όπου υπάρχει εκεί η αρχαία Πύθνα, υπάρχουν κάποια υπολείμματα του αρχαίου πολιτισμού και εκεί νομίζω κορυφώνεται αυτό το όνειρο που αποκτά ιδιαίτερη σημασία, το τρίτο μέρος που έχει σχέση απόλυτη με μένα και με τη δουλειά μου και με τη σχέση μου με την αρχαία τραγωδία. Είναι το τρίτο και το τελευταίο μέρος του ονείρου μετά την συνάντησή μου με τα 3 αρχέτυπα σε αυτή την αρχετυπική σκηνή από τον Αιγυπτιακό πολιτισμό. Εδώ λοιπόν συνέβη κάτι εξαιρετικό. Ήρθα σε αυτό το σημείο που υπήρχε εδώ στην αρχαιότητα ο ναός του Απόλλωνα. Τον κατέστρεψαν βέβαια τα πρωτοχριστιανικά χρόνια. Εδώ λοιπόν στάθηκα και είδα απέναντι πάνω στη θάλασσα να περπατούν 5 φιγούρες, πολύ αργά. Και άκουσα έναν ήχο. Έναν ήχο τον οποίο τον έχετε ακούσει σε παραστάσεις μου. Ίσως τον επεξεργάστηκα. Ήταν και εκεί ακριβώς είδα τις φιγούρες να περπατούν με έναν πολύ αργό χρόνο. Τραγουδώντας αυτό το μελωδία, αυτή τη σκηνή την ανακαλώ πολύ συχνά, τον αργό χρόνο, ακριβώς όπως το θέατρο νόμο, όπως τις αρχαίες παραδόσεις, όπως γίνονται οι θρησκευτικές τελετές στο Άγιο Όρος σήμερα. Εδώ λοιπόν, σε αυτό το χώρο, ζυμώθηκε η ιδέα μου. Αλλά σε αυτό το χώρο που είναι ένα κομμάτι της αρχαίας Πύθνας, έγραψε ο Ευρυπίδης τις Βάπτιες. Στην Πέλα παίχτηκε αυτή η πρώτη παράσταση και την Αγάπη και τον Διόνυσο και τους Διορούχους Ελλήνες ο γιος του Ευρυπίδη που το όνομά του ήταν Θεόδωρος.
Είναι ο Θεόδωρος. Παιδί του Δία. Με γέννησε η Σεμέλη, η κόρη του Κάδου, που τη δευτερώσε η φωτιά της αστραπής.
Γεωμετρώ πολλά πράγματα. Γεωμετρείται το πάθος, ο φόβος, γεωμετρείται η μοναξιά, γεωμετρείται η θλίψη, γεωμετρούνται όλα. Δηλαδή ορίζονται με έναν τρόπο και λειτουργούν αλλιώς ως προς τους θεατές και γίνονται αλλιώς και αντιληπτές από τους ηθοποιούς, οι οποίοι δεν απελευθερώνουν δυνάμεις και να δημιουργούν χαοτικό περιβάλλον, όχι. Γεωμετρείται το χάος. Εδώ είναι η βάρκα του πατέρα μου. Έχει και όνομα, ο Άγιος Νικόλαος. Στο ποδήλατό του που πήγαινε στη θάλασσα, το ένα κουπί τα δίχτυα, η απόχη, τα διάφορα σήμερα, οι πετονιές. Δεν είναι απίστευτο. Και σαν έργο του Γιάννη Κουνέλη, του φίλου μου και συνεργάτη μου. Μνήμες κατακαιρματισμένες. Πολλές φορές στείνοντας μια σκηνή είχα αναφορές σε αυτό το χώρο, στα αντικείμενα, στις μνήμες, στις φόρμες, σε αυτό το λαβύρινθο. Το θέατρο και η τέχνη στο σύνολό της λειτουργούν στον προθάλαμο του Άδη, στον προθάλαμο του θανάτου, σε αυτή την γκρίζα ζώνη, που εκεί κατοικεί και ο Μπέκετ, ο μεγαλύτερος κατά τη γνώμη μου, και όχι μόνο, μετά τον Εσχύλο. Η τραγωδία δεν είναι ρεαλισμός. Είναι ένα άλλο είδος. Είναι η μεγάλη ιδέα της τέχνης του θεάτρου.
They did all the work. That's why it was so artificially exceptional. Ευχαριστούμε και τη Σεϊδό για την προσφορά της που θα γευτούμε τώρα έξω.
Έχουμε καραβάκι που μας κάνει έτσι, το έπισε.